Hey folks, I really desperately try to find any kind of manual or program or anything else or videos to show the breakdown and the clean and lube of the King's Full Metal M4 specifically. Couldn't find it, so here we are. Now remember, I'm not a technician. I'm just kind of like you guys and going through it. There will be more, but this is what we can do so far. So you'll need some nice silicone gun oil, some gear grease, and also flathead screwdriver, uh, a Allen key, and maybe a little torch as well, just so you can see what's going on in there. Basically, what we're going to be doing now is pulling it apart, pulling the pins out, and getting it ready for a clean. Now, I've done this several times before to try to make sure that I did it without fumbling too much. So feel free to pause it at any stage and break it down. I found it easier to pull it apart a bit to make it easier to service. This was done very easily by pulling that spring backwards, like that's high sprung, and it just pops out very easily. Make sure you've got your battery out and everything in safe mode, and then proceed to pull those pins out. As I said, guys, I'm not a technician. I did look high and low for any kind of manual to try to work off. As at this point in time, I'm just pulling it apart as much as I dare to. But obviously, as I go further, I'll put more videos out. Now, basically, yeah, use the flathead screwdriver to get underneath that pin. It's a pretty solidly in there. Get it out enough so then you can jimmy, a piece of metal or a screwdriver, or in my case, an Allen key, underneath it to push it out, to get that pin out. As I said, it is a bit difficult, but it does pop out and it'll lock. When you feel it lock, then you know that it's all the way out. Okay, now be careful when you're pulling it apart because it may spring, but don't freak out. It's not too many things going to spring out at you. The difficult part, I suppose, with that would have been to take the primer off of the little back knob there. It does come off. You just got to pull that primer back a little bit. Main thing to worry about is the only thing that's going to really spring out is this little metal sheet that covers over the what would normally be the ejection port. That does spring out, but again, it's easy to put back in. But the first time I pulled that out, it kind of went flying, and then I tried to put it back in, and yeah, all sorts of issues. So try to be gentle with it, and just remember it does all go back in. So don't worry. Now I already cleaned my gun, so basically we're just going to go over greasing it. On your gun specifically, look for any wear points that you can see, and grab your gear grease and just do a nice little lathering over anything that's metal, because the whole thing is metal, so there's going to be rutting components and wearing components that you've got, as well as just good metal protection. So cover the whole thing over, on both sides, and into the gears as well. Basically anything that you see where the gears would be moving, rub a bit of that in there. Once you're happy that you've put the gear grease into all the little components, including the little slides, what we're doing after that, that's pretty much what you've done with the grease. Normally the grease would go into the gears and the gearboxes, but we're not going to the gearboxes today. It's going to be a further breakdown and far more complicated, so I'll probably leave that for people like Gelsoft Warrior and Liguido Top Shot. So now what we're using is the silicone gun oil to basically put over the seals where the rubber mounts and the seals are, and also into the springs. Any kind of working parts that you can kind of get into, honestly. Give it a bit of an oil up. You certainly can't hurt it. And again, as I said, it's all metal, so it's good to keep it all nicely oiled for any moving parts you can get. Right, now with this one, I already cleaned the barrel out, but what I used was, again, good paper cloth. I twisted it up really well, made sure I forced it all the way down, made sure it was twisted nice and small, and popped it out the end and pulled it through, cleaned out the barrel nicely. Now again, with your silicone gun oil, I'd suggest you put it onto the springs on the inside there. There's a couple of springs and components you'll see, and it certainly couldn't hurt to give them a coat and make sure that they're nicely lubricated, so they're working parts, so it's good to keep them from wearing too much and make your gun last longer. Give it a bit of a rub in. Now, because there's slightly rubber mounts as well, I like to use the air seal grease that is slightly thicker. It's quite thick actually, and a little difficult to pour out the bottle the first time. But that I find is great for any of the air seals, whether it be through the magazine port or from the cartridge, the pressure cartridge itself. So there's a couple of little places. Not too much because it is quite thick. It's just enough to make sure that when it seals properly and just covers any small imperfections there. So once you put them in both ports, back ring and the on top ring, wouldn't actually hurt to do this to your magazines as well when you're servicing your magazines, once they're all nice and dried and cleaned out. Okay, so you can see where those rings are, so just middle of the top of both of them. And there's that little slide I was talking about. It is a very thin piece of metal. It's not that big a deal. It just kind of helps the protect the inner workings, but it does slot in pretty easy. But if it does happen to spring out on you, don't worry. You'll see where it slots in, and it'll sit in comfortably there. That's connected to your charge. So when you pull that back, that normally springs that open. So just be wary that when you do put it back on, that you've got that sitting flat. Okay, we're putting it back together now, making sure that little flat piece is in there straight, keeping it down, and then slide it on back on. Now you get to about this point, and that'll be where the charge lever locks up a bit. Hang on to your rifle and just pop it up like that, pull it back, give it a bit of a shove, and it will lock in. Boom. Give it a bit of a pull back so you can feel that it's locked in properly. Don't do it too far because you don't want to pull that and stretch that inner spring. Okay, once it's all locked in properly, sitting in properly, push your bolt down. Put your second one in there, make sure they're all fastened in. And that's that part of it done. Now you just put the external housing back on, which is all pretty simple. Put the top one on first, slide it into the top frame. You'll feel a little lip there that actually hooks into. Pull that slide back, and you'll feel it lock into the grooves. Give it a bit of a twiddle here and there, and it'll fit nicely. Well, that's it. I hope it helps. As I said, sorry it wasn't more, guys, but this is basically just a general way of servicing and keeping your gun working well. I will be doing more as I learn more. Please, by all means, let's send me any messages if there is better and more ways, or if you do find a manual, that'd be great. Till then, you guys take care of yourselves, enjoy blasting, and I'll see you out in the field.